My name is Dr. Carmen Smith, and thank you for joining me today. I'm a trauma specialist. I work at Clark County Family Services. I work with the children there at Child Haven who have been abused and neglected. And I've been working for Clark County for about 20 years, working with kids, dealing with their trauma, and also adults. And first of all, let me define what trauma is. And I talk about it a lot in the book, The I Am Solution, because it's very important that you know what trauma is. And we've all experienced trauma. If you've ever gone through a divorce, if you've ever lost a job, if you've ever had a foreclosure, and in the recession we had a lot of that. These are events and situations that really take us aback, and they affect us emotionally. And also trauma is when you're attacked physically, or when you see a loved one that is being physically attacked or in danger. So this creates trauma in your body. And when I say trauma in your body, you feel it. You have heart palpitations. You don't know what's going to happen. You're confused. And we've all experienced times where we've had that happen in our body. And this is fear, because we don't know what's going to happen next. We're confused. We want to have a roadmap about our life, and we have an expectation about what's supposed to happen. And when things don't go that way, we experience fear and trauma. So thank you for joining me today. Let's talk about how we can turn fear into love. And it is possible. It is possible to get rid of that fear that we feel when we experience situations that we didn't necessarily expect. So in the book, I'm going to read from chapter 3, and it talks about, you know, what is trauma, and gives you a clearer definition of trauma. And this is a quote that I start the book with, this chapter with, what is trauma? Past trauma can create the current drama in our lives, and the purpose for the drama is to either create limitations or to break them. So let me break that down. What am I saying there? If you've ever watched a reality TV show, you notice there's a lot of drama going on, trauma and drama, and sometimes they even call the people drama queens. Because once we are afraid of life and situations, we have that vibration within us and we start creating it. So we start creating situations that create more trauma and drama, and then we say that we want to get healed. We say that we want to have a better life, but we don't know how to do it because our very vibration of that energy of fear is creating the next situation. So what I talk about in the book is, how do you change that vibration? How do you change that vibration of fear into something that's going to create the life that we want? And the energy that does that is love. The energy that changes us and changes our situation around us is love. And we're not taught that in school. So oftentimes we come from dysfunctional families, and so oftentimes we will create the same dysfunction even though we say that's not what we want, because we've never been taught how to change that into love, and maybe we've never even seen it. Any comments or questions about what I've talked about so far? I've talked about what trauma is, how it creates more trauma, and oftentimes it's because we don't know another way of being. Like I said, if you've seen those reality TV shows, it's just week after week. More drama, more trauma. She said this, what is that? You know, and you're creating all of this stuff, and they have no idea that they can uncreate it because they're just so used to being that way. So, any comments about that, or questions about what trauma is? Okay, so now the next thing is, once we know what trauma is, and I call it the human hamster wheel in the book, it's that when you experience fear, shame, guilt, all of that, you begin to have certain personality traits that draw those things to you, that attract that type of vibration to you. So once you understand that you are in control of how you react and attract to the world, how you react to the world and how you're attracting that trauma to you, you're more empowered. In other words, you're not the victim and everything's being done to you. You're more empowered. Oh, I had something to do with that. I had something to do with attracting that to me in my life, in my situation. So that's very empowering, as opposed to, he's doing that to me again. I can't believe he did that. She did that. My coworker is doing that. Why is my boss do? You see how you're putting everything outside of you, outside of your control, rather than saying, what am I doing? How am I creating this life? Because we're powerful beings. We're creating all the time. How am I creating that relationship? What is the energy that I'm putting out that's attracting this to me? See, this is a whole different way of perceiving the world. When we perceive it from this standpoint, we're taking control and power back, and we are not a victim of our boss, of our spouse, of our children. We're taking empowerment of the situation. So this is a major perception change. This is how you begin to change your trauma thinking and your vibration into a more powerful situation where you can control the situation. Okay, so that's a perception change. So far, I'm going to summarize, what we've talked about is trauma. What is trauma? The perception that somebody's doing something to us further puts us in the victim mode, and we will attract more victim experiences. Or we can have that change and shift in vibration where we say, wait a minute. If I put it on my boss and on my spouse, then I'm waiting for them to change. So my situation's still going to be yucky because I'm still waiting for them to change. No, this is about me changing my perception, me taking control of my happiness, me taking control and empowering myself to see that I'm not a victim. So that perception change is majorly important because you're taking your power back. Okay, now you have your power. Now what do? You're starting to see things differently. You're saying, wait a minute. Instead of complaining with my coworkers about how horrible life is and how horrible this is, I've got to change my paradigm. I've got to change the way I relate to people. I can't complain anymore because that's going to give me more victim situations. That's going to further my complaining. I'm going to have more things to complain about. No, I've got to change my perception, and maybe that means those complaining friends won't be attracted to me anymore because I'm not putting out that energy. So your world is definitely going to change when you take on this type of empowering situation. The people around you may see a difference and have to adjust themselves to a more positive viewpoint. It's not that you're changing them by nagging at them, telling them that they need to do something. No, it's you change within yourself, and what shows up will be different in your life. And that's pretty powerful, because I think I grew up, and most people grew up, is that the situation needs to change first. I need to just quit my job because my boss is really giving me a hard time, and then they quit that job, they go to another job, and they figure out, wait, I don't like authority figures. So it's not really the people out there, it is always something within us that needs to shift. It is always something within us that is telling us that we're not a victim and we don't need to wait until outside situations change. We have the power within ourselves to change our situation, and then when we change ourselves, wow, things are showing up different in my life. So I want you to see that it's an inside out situation. That's how you change trauma. That's how we change ourselves. Changing ourselves, and then what happens outside of ourselves can't help but change because we're putting out a different vibrational energy. Any comments or questions about that? Now, those of you who are familiar with Joseph Campbell, he was a myth expert. He spent his entire career looking at different cultures and the myths and the stories and the storytelling that would go on in different cultures. And he's the one that talked about the hero's journey. What is the hero's journey? Well, he found out that the hero's journey is in every myth, every story, just in different forms. Whether it's the Matrix, whether it's the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy takes off on her journey to find herself and she finds the wizard, and then in the end she finds out that the wizard can't help her, that the solution was within herself the whole time. And just by clicking her heels she could go back home. So we all have the hero's journey. We're all on our hero's journey, if you didn't already know that. So when trauma shows up, what it's there to teach us is how to find the solution to that trauma. Find the solution. The solution is always within ourselves. It's never outside of ourselves. If we're looking for a savior and we're not looking within ourselves for that strength, we will find more trauma. Because that says, let me tell you what that says. It says, I'm a victim, I need help, I'm a victim, I don't like to be victimized, I'm afraid of being victimized again, please save me. So when we're looking outside of ourselves, what are we actually doing? We're expecting somebody else to be our hero, and they will always disappoint us because they're human. They have flaws, they have all kinds of struggles that they're dealing with, and they're never going to show up in the expected way that we would want. And they're never going to have the answer that is so individual and particular to us. So this is what we find in the hero's journey. We have to answer the call. When trauma shows up, we have to say to ourselves, the answer, the strength. If that's what I'm looking for, the strength is within me. The answer to this situation that I'm going through is within me. So you can see that the hero is always going to be us. But we have a hard time believing that because for some reason we've been told within our family, within the school system, within our culture that we're not enough. You're not smart enough. Well, your skin color is not this, so you're lacking. So we have all these cultural lies that we feed into. So when trauma happens, what are we going to think? We're the hero? No, I've been told my whole life I'm not the hero. I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this. I'm not rich enough. I don't have the answer to this problem. That's a lie. The only way we find out that it's a lie is accepting the hero's journey. So when trauma happens, we go within. We find out who we are. We reaffirm who we are once we find it out. And we practice from that strength and empowerment every day. And we find out that we are the hero. Let me give you an example. Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey is about accepting the call. You will be challenged. That's the trauma. You accept that challenge. And on your way, finding out who you are, you find your strength, you find your empowerment. Dorothy finds out who she really is. She's smart enough, she's brave enough, all of those things, just like we do. And when you come out on the other side of trauma, you're no longer a victim because you've gone through that journey of finding yourself and who you are. You see that you are the hero of your own story. And then the last part of that journey is coming back and sharing it with other people and saying, this is what I found out. This is who you are. This is how wonderful life is. So the people that are going through a struggle can see an example of wholeness within you. can see the hero in you and know that it's also within them. So that's what trauma can do. It can help you rediscover or discover for the first time that you are the answer, you are the solution, and you are the hero in your own story. And then you can share it with other people, and that is service. You can be of service to someone who has never seen a whole person. What does that mean when I say a whole person? So many times we go through life, and maybe we have parents, and I'll speak personally. I had a parent that felt that they were lacking in a certain area. So when you see a whole piece of pie, there's nothing missing, right? There's nothing missing from us when we enter this world. We're coming from divine energy, so there's nothing missing. But sometimes you'll encounter people, whether it's parents or teachers or spouses or whoever, that feel like they're missing something. I'm not good enough, so take another piece of that pie out. I'm not smart enough, so you take another piece of that pie out. So then they have kids, and they're working with half a pie. In other words, not really, but they're working with half a pie. They're not whole, and they don't see themselves as whole. And if a person does not see themselves as whole, they cannot see you as whole. That was deep. So if they're missing something, and they've never had it, or they've never felt it, they can't give it to you. So yeah, my dad probably couldn't give me the confidence because he didn't have it within himself. My mom couldn't give me that hero within herself because she didn't have it within herself. So when I was dealing with parents that were had half a pie, then I would grow up not feeling whole within myself. So once I experience trauma and I accept the challenge, I go within myself, within that spiritual realm, within that divine realm, within that God space, there is wholeness. God is not lacking anything. God created us without any lack. We are whole and complete. So you go within yourself and you practice. And what I talk about in the book is the 5-pointed star. You practice the attributes of the divine.
Barnes & Noble shoppers, thanks for coming in today. Barnes & Noble is pleased to welcome the local author, Dr. Carmen Smith. Please join Dr. Smith in the event space of our store and learn more about her book, The I Am Solution. That's Dr. Carmen Smith in the event space right now. Stop by and say hi. And don't forget to follow Barnes & Noble on Twitter and Instagram at B.N. Henderson and me.
That was very nice. Nice little plug right in the middle. So what is being whole? Let's talk about what being whole is, because I believe that we came into this world divine and whole. And somewhere along the way, in this culture, in this teaching that we go through in this learning space called Earth, we thought that we were lacking something, and we're not lacking anything at all. When you answer the call for the hero's journey, you go within and you go into that space of peace and quiet, and you block out all of the messages that you were taught, and you begin to feel yourself, and you have a desire to learn who you are. You can even ask those questions in your meditation or however you do it. Who am I? And you find out that you're not your bank account. You're not what's on your ID. You're not your skin color. You're not your gender. What you are is divine energy. And so then you practice this on a daily basis. I always tell people that you don't have a magic wand and you knock yourself over the head and all of a sudden you're this loving being. No, it takes practice. So the 5-pointed star, which I talk about in the book, is your practice. These are your practice points. You'll notice at the top there's compassion, and then there's gratitude, acceptance, and trust. Now what does this mean? This means that this love that I'm talking about, this isn't romantic love. And it's not human love. This is God love. What is God love? God love is when you love and accept the person, even though they are not showing you the most loving behaviors. Now, weren't you taught to love people that loved you back? Weren't you taught that your behaviors are definitely a reason why I love you, that there are conditions to my love? No, that's not what love is. That's something that we made up as humans to reject people and label them as bad or good. But it's not anything that God came up with. As a matter of fact, in the Bible it says, you know, it's easy to love people that don't, that love you. That's easy. It's hard to love people that don't love you. That's hard. And so this is something that you practice because you want to be in alignment with God, not what humans made up. You want to be in alignment with God. That love is powerful. This love that I'm talking about is healing. This is not something that is you throw away humans over a behavior. That's not the way God thinks, and you want to align yourself with what God thinks. Compassion is when someone or something or even yourself, when you do something that you could feel shameful for, could feel guilty about, you have compassion for yourself. Why is that? Because that's the way God thinks. God has compassion. He's not judging us the way humans judge. This is very important, that we don't judge ourselves and put ourselves in this guilt frame, because that will cause more trauma. We would attract that to us based on our vibrational energy of guilt, shame, anger, rage, depression. You see how that works? This is a changing of the energy, aligning with that God spirit, that God divine energy. Gratitude. What does that mean? I'm a gratitude warrior. What does that mean? That means that I am grateful for everything. I don't care what it is. If it's a flat tire, if it is a foreclosure, if it is anything, I am grateful for the opportunity to experience that hero's journey. I will accept the challenge because I know at the end of that I get more light. I get more positive energy. You can go through trauma, you can come out on the other side with anger, or you can come out on the other side with, yes, now I understand that person that has experienced blah, 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 because I just went through it. You see, these are treasures, but we've been used to seeing them in a different way, and it's in a human way, it's in a lower frequency way, but that's not the way God sees it. And so when you become more enlightened and on your spiritual journey, on your hero's journey, you see life differently. And I could go deeper into this. I'll just scratch the surface right now. But the Kabbalists, if you're familiar with Kabbalah, which is not Jewish mysticism, but it predates the Bible, they talk about a spiritual realm. So you begin to see things through the lens of the spiritual realm rather than the physical realm. That's the physical realm. So in the spiritual realm, there is a different way of seeing trauma. There's a different way of seeing rape. There's a different way of seeing physical abuse than the way we see it here. That's why in the Bible it says, I think differently than the way you think. So when you're thinking in the physical realm, just know, wait a minute, there's another way of being, there's another way of thinking. Let me twist it, or let me figure out where I'm getting stuck here. Because we're always working on ourselves. This is a practice, by the way. So become a gratitude warrior. Acceptance. You have to accept that you're divine. You have to accept that you are powerful, that you were made that way. You were not placed on this earth with limited abilities, more limited than God. You just were not. If you're familiar with the New Testament, Jesus says, bigger things than this you will do. What was he saying? He was saying, you know, don't put this all on me. You are powerful. You are wonderfully made. You can do all things, and all things are possible. So accept that. Don't buy into the limitations that we put on ourselves and that the culture puts on us. Don't buy into it. Once we do, it can define us. But you can't be definable. You really can't. You are just so limitless. Trust. Trust that all things are working together for your good. Whether it's the trauma, whatever you're going through, trust that the universe is rigged in your favor. Now, what happens when you trust that? You're creating this. I got goosebumps just now when I said that. It's rigged in your favor. Meaning that when you vibrate with that energy, remember you're sending out energy all the time. And we have measurements to measure that, our heart energy. I mean, we know that. You're sending out energy. Do you want it to be anger, fear, confusion? Or do you want it to be, I know everything is working together for my good. I may not be able to see it right now, but I'm excited knowing that that is true. I know that's true. That energy you put out into the universe, miracles begin to come back to you. Well, how did I get that job? Well, I know how. You were sending out that energy that is rigged in your favor. You were sending it out. So this is something that you practice every day. What I do if I'm encountering anything, I take it through the 5-pointed star. Am I loving? At the end of the day, was I compassionate? Was I grateful today? Was I accepting of people today? Did I judge people harshly today? Did I trust today that everything, even the traffic that made me late to work, am I trusting everything is working together for my good? Because we don't know if God was keeping us from an accident or something. We just don't know that, but we have to know and trust that it's working together for my good no matter what it is. Did I withhold love today? Because that's what we did in my family growing up. That's why it was a dysfunctional family, because if we were upset with somebody, we withhold love. Did I withhold love today? Well, no, God doesn't withhold love. So I wasn't in that God space, that vibration, so let me back up and clean out and figure out what's going on. I work on myself every day. These are practices that I do. I heard Deepak Chopra talk to Oprah one time, and he said, I meditate 4 hours every day, and he gets up at 4 in the morning. And I thought, I love Deepak. I'm not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 hours. I'm not going to tell people to get up at 4 o'clock, 4 hours. I don't know if I have ADHD, but I can't sit still for long periods of time with my eyes closed without me thinking about my grocery list. So I'm not going to tell people to do that, you know, and expect that they're going to have this Zen experience. Let me tell you what I do. And let me also say that this is individualized. So in my book, I talk about, you're not Deepak, but find something that works for you. Something where you can get an alignment with that energy we were talking about that doesn't see the world the way humans do. It's more in a God spiritual space. That can look different for each individual person in here. So some people, you can do moving meditation. And people sometimes forget that meditation isn't like this. Oh, that's not the definition of meditation. You have to get in a space where you can listen to and be in attune with that divine energy. So if you're dancing and that clears your mind, and you're doing a movement, like the Indians would do a movement, repetitive movement. The twirling dervishes move, and they are meditating while they're spinning. You find out what works for you. So what works for me is I put on music that is some monks chanting in the morning before I go to work. And all I need is 5 minutes. I need 5 good minutes to put on the music, sit at the end of the bed. I'm listening to the music. I'm saying to God, whatever happens today, I am that I am. In other words, I want to be in your God space, your thinking space, no matter what happens. So that's why I'm using this hand movement, because it's like, here's my personality before the alignment, which is ego, which is, I don't know what's going to happen, I'm going to, figure it out. Here's God over here. I want to make sure that that comes together and we're thinking the same stuff. And so I need 5 minutes. And then I do a little bit of Qigong in those 5 minutes, and I cram a lot of stuff in those 5 minutes. And then I'm set for the day. So whatever it takes for you, whether it's journaling, whatever it is, to get in the headspace, don't think, oh yeah, I got this. Because you'll go right back to your old ways of doing stuff. I know I would. So just make it a point to align yourself however you want to do that. At the beginning of the day, and I used to say to myself, I wonder why Muslims will pray 5 times a day. Well, the reason is you got to align your stuff all the time with that God-centered energy. It's not only on Sundays when people go to church, it's throughout the day. So we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about trauma. We've talked about your perception change, going from victim to empowering yourself. We've talked about how you can practice the 5-pointed star. And we've talked about the hero's journey, accepting the challenge. Whatever happens in your life, accept that challenge. I need to go deeper within myself. But for some reason, we've been taught to say, oh, here's a challenge. You need to change yourself. You need to start doing stuff. Don't we? We look outside of ourselves and say, you need to change. Because, I just can't put up with you. And we look outside of ourselves for the answer for somebody else to change, which further victimizes us. And that doesn't feel good. This is what feels much better. There's something going on. Let's say the boss is doing something, or your coworkers are backstabbing. And you say, wow, how have I created this? That's a whole different way of looking at it, because when we put it back on ourselves, that's empowering. It gives us power, not the person that's doing whatever they're doing. When we're empowered and we're not expecting somebody else to change and do their work, because I don't know about you guys, but I've been on this planet long enough to know that you can't change other people. And I'm a therapist, okay? I do this for a living. You can't change anybody. But for some reason, we're always expecting that other person to change, and then I'll feel better. This situation, the recession will change and I'll feel better. No, that's not how it works. It's within us. We have the power. Don't belittle yourself. Don't put limitations on yourself by thinking that something outside of yourself needs to be bigger or better than what's within you. You're whole and complete, just the way you are. And we need to accept the challenge to get to that vibrational space where we know that it's true. When we can say, I am that I am. I am powerful. I am divine. I am enough. Because we all are. We're more than enough. I am limitless. I am love. And that is the I am solution. Do we have any questions or comments? That's the end of my lecture. And all these wonderful people. Thank you. It's $12.95. Yeah, and I can sign it if you'd like to take it up to the front, I guess, and I'll sign it in the back.
It's heavy stuff.